We have only been able to record sound for just over 150 years. During that time, we have managed to record some incredible historical events. In this video, we have collected for you some of the strangest and most eerie sounds ever recorded. The earliest recording you can hear. Sound recording was invented in 1857 by Edouard Léon Scott de Martinville when he created the phonograph. The first recording ever recorded is believed to be the voice of the machine's creator singing "Au clair de la lune" in the moonlight. By our recording standards, this is an extremely creepy record, and being over 150 years old, it's a pretty interesting piece of history. The Woman from Space. At the beginning of the 1960s, the battle between the Soviet Union and the United States for space is in full swing. And whoever succeeds in going to space first will have the right to be called himself the first. American tragedies that followed as a result of their attempts to reach space are well known to all. But this is not exactly the case for their Soviet colleagues. At this time, many amateur radio enthusiasts began to mass produce homemade radio equipment that allowed them to eavesdrop on frequencies used by both parties during their space voyages. Among them are two brothers from Italy, Achille and Giovanni Giudica Cordelia, who are very advanced in radio communication techniques compared to the rest of their colleagues. They were capable of tuning into all Soviet Space Agency radio frequencies and to eavesdrop and record them. In May 1961, the brothers managed to pick up a Soviet broadcast that numbed them. The signal was the voice of a woman who was clearly in distress. This is part of the real recording made by the brothers. Listen. The woman speaks in Russian, but in translation what she says is, "It's hot. I see flames. Will I crash? Yes, yes, I will enter again." Then the recording stops. 3 days after the recording was made, the official Soviet news agency TASS reported the failed re-entry of a bus-sized satellite. As this launch is not reported anywhere, to this day, the Soviet Union does not acknowledge the alleged incident, and the woman's identity remains a secret. Edison's recording. This recording was made in 1922 by Thomas Edison to Harry Humphrey. Edison made this recording on his personally invented phonograph, which is also the first audio player. The original idea was to sell records to owners of the Edison phonograph, so they could play it for their children at Christmas and enjoy themselves. But quite the opposite happened. Everyone's heard the most horrifying Christmas message ever. Here's an excerpt from the original recording.
Hello, little folks. Do you know who I am? You've heard of me often. Some say I'm a sham. But most of you know that cannot be true. For every Christmas you've seen what I do. And now, you not only know just what I do, but you hear my old voice as I'm speaking to you. Who is it, you say? Hush, close all the doors and I'll tell you a secret. I'm old Santa Claus.
Laughter alone is enough to put children off Santa Claus forever. Saturn, source of radio emissions. In 2002, the Cassini spacecraft flew by Saturn and recorded some pretty strange things. If you listen closely, you can hear what appears to be an alien voice. It is very difficult to make out the words, but some people believe they have deciphered the following message. You humans are driven to abandon the earthly impulse. What do you think? Are they aliens or just the sound of cosmic space? Let me know in the comments below. Operation Wandering Soul. and so you don't have to wander in search of relevant content every time. Subscribe to our channel. Operation was an attempt by the U.S. military during the Vietnam War to scare the opposition by playing terrifying sounds in the jungle through the dark nights. The Vietnamese believed that they had to bury their people, otherwise their souls would be left to roam the earth in pain and suffering for eternity. Therefore, when they heard the following sound, echoing from the depths of the dense jungle, they must have been scared to death. The U.S. military often broadcast the sound from loudspeakers. Number station. During the Cold War for more than 30 years, the shortwave radio spectrum was used massively by the world's intelligence agencies to transmit secret messages to their spies who were in enemy territory. These broadcasts were completely anonymous or one-way radio stations, and they could be intercepted and listened to by anyone. For this purpose, very basic radio equipment is used. These stations broadcast 24 hours a day, on very strict schedules from various European countries. The broadcasts were nothing more than female or male voices repeating a series of numbers and letters. The key feature of these transmissions is that the coded messages they contain are completely encrypted and can only be deciphered by the select few who are meant to receive the message. Despite many attempts, no one but the intended recipient has ever been able to decode these messages. This is a recording of a British station broadcasting a message.
6, 3, 9, 2, 8, 2, 2, 5, 5, 1, 9, 6, 0, 0, 1, 5, 5, 5, 9, 9, 2.
That's how a German broadcast, known at the time as the Swedish Rhapsody, sounded. The voice sounds like a terrifying little girl. There is another station which is called the reverse station, because some believed it sounded like music played backwards. The signal is believed to have originated from the UK and the US. The difference between these stations and all others was that these never transmitted voice messages, only endless infernal noises. It is believed that these stations stopped being used after the end of the Cold War, around 1991. But to this day, intelligence agencies continue to use them to send messages to spies because the shortwave radio spectrum remains a fairly reliable way to communicate. If you tune your radio to the right frequency at the right time, you may catch some of these messages. The atmosphere of Jupiter. If your idea of space is endless silence and darkness and here and there some strange-looking rock, you'll be half right. Space is silent to the human ear, but with the right device you can sense and record vibrations in space. That's exactly what happens when NASA's Voyager satellite flies by Jupiter's atmosphere. This is the sound that the device records. It is incredibly eerie just to think that such a sound could be produced by a planet. It sounds more like an alien spacecraft than a giant ball of gas. Sound is actually the result of the complex interaction of charged electromagnetic particles in the planet's magnetosphere. The infinite nothingness. Speaking of space, not all space noise comes from the planets. In 1977, the Big Ear radio telescope at Ohio State University picked up a signal from space that sounded like this. It was called the wow signal because the person who first heard it wrote it down in a diary and circled it, then wrote wow on the side. The most interesting thing about the signal is that it came from a place in space where there were neither galaxies nor planets, a seemingly empty place. The question of how a signal can be transmitted from a place full of nothing remains open, unless it isn't actually nothing. Many people believe that the signal comes from a UFO traveling in space, but to this day, scientists cannot explain where the signal actually came from. Now on your screen, you will see more materials of ours. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and I'll see you in the next video.